Okay, let's go over how to start a project and the interface. So when I open up After Effects, I see this window usually. It'll be at the home screen and tell you all of your previous projects that you've opened or started if you have any. I'm just going to go ahead. You can close it or start a new project. I usually close it, and then when I start my new composition, I do it from here. And then you're going to give it a name. Whatever you want to name it. And then, so we'll go over a couple things in here. This part I usually leave here, especially for this class. This is HD, 24 frames per second. 24 frames per second is better for animation. If you're doing film, you want to go higher. And if you've recorded video and you're importing the video, you want to be aware of what the video frame per second is. So if you're importing a 60 frame per second, you want to keep it that way. But for now, for our purposes, we're going to keep it here. And if you know that you want a 10-second animation, we'll go ahead and start, or we'll do 15. I don't think there's a project that's less than 15 seconds. And then we'll leave everything else as is. If you know that you want like 3D stuff, you can turn on these things. They do take more of your computer power, RAM and stuff, so be aware of that. They do different things. This one's the older version of the 3D, I believe, that it works fine for most of the things, and I don't think it takes as much rendering power as the Cinema 4D one, but just be aware that they do have different requirements. Let's see. And it'll tell you here all the things that are disabled or enabled with these things. So hit OK. And now you have, here, I'll move this over here. I've got multiple windows at home. Now you have your composition. And that is how you start a new composition. If you want to import anything, you go File and Import. And then you can pick, a picture. And I had it set, if I undo that, I had it set to import a specific way. So you can see I have Create Composition selected. If I wanted an image sequence, I would have that checked, but this wasn't supposed to be an image sequence. So I'll just import the single image. And when I want to make it into a composition, I can drag it here and create that composition, or just open my composition that I created with the settings that I wanted and the size that I wanted, and just bring in the picture. Okay, and that is, mostly this lesson. But if you want, you can check different ways of viewing After Effects to, figure out what works best for you. I have a default. I usually keep it at that. If you want, you can have the transparency on. This checker print means that it's going to render with nothing behind it, right? Or if I put something here, there's going to be nothing behind it. Or if I just tried to render this, it would be, nothing. If I render it with the transparency, it'll be, nothing. Let's see. This would be just the yellow square, right? And nothing around it, but it would render the whole thing. If I don't render with transparency on, it'll render black. So just be aware of that. If you want to align things, there's these buttons over here, and then your anchor point, you know, moving tools right here. So I think if I wanted to make a small animation, I can press P or go to position. So I'm going to press P. I'm going to set a keyframe. I'm going to come over here at the end. This is the timeline scanner. And I'm going to come at the end of the timeline, and I will move it down to the bottom. And now I have a very slow moving, you know, square. We can move it to the top. So it goes from the top to the bottom, right? And that is an animation. Those are keyframes. This is a composition. You can see it's titled here. This is the new composition button. If you want a new composition, you can press that button. It'll usually give you the same settings that you had in your previous thing that you opened, except the 3D renderer was different. And then, you know, you give it a title, and it'll give you a new composition. I can make layers, so new solid. We'll do a blue solid layer and a new solid that is a pink layer, and let's make a star. So I'm going to hold down Alt to make it smaller and bigger. I'm going to hold down Control to make the spike smaller and bigger. I'm going to press the up or down arrow to make more points for the star. And I can use the space bar to move it around, and then shift to snap it into place, but scale it only. Okay, I'm going to let that go, and we've got the star. It is a mask, not a shape layer. So I had a solid, and I made a mask over the solid, so it just masked the solid instead of creating a shape layer. If I wanted this as a shape layer, I would deselect any other layers, have the shape layer, shape tool selected that I want, and then I would draw it on to the screen. You can see obviously it's not the pink we were looking for. So we can turn off stroke by selecting this button and going none. And you can change the fill. You can make it a gradient by pressing the fill button, like the text, I mean. So if you take the blue text is selected, and this will open. So we can do, let's do a gradient, and then double click on that to open up the gradient. And let's, you know, change the colors slightly. Okay? All right. So if I wanted, I could bring compositions into each other. So let's go back to our original composition. And remember that the black, there's only the shape layer, is transparent, right? So we can turn that on or, you know, not. It depends on what you prefer. So this is a layer. And then if I bring in the other composition above it, you'll see I can't see my layer anymore. I'll have to drag this layer underneath the other layer to see it. So now we can see that, you know, our original animation is happening over the background we created. So that should help you get started. Have fun.